I'm Lisa Federico, and this is Inside Northwest Columbus. After spending decades in corporate marketing, I traded boardrooms for backyards because the best stories are happening right here at home. Every week, you'll meet entrepreneurs, creatives, and everyday neighbors doing extraordinary things across Worthington and Northwest Columbus. So let's jump into this week's conversation. Welcome to Inside Northwest Columbus. I'm your host, Lisa Federico, and this month our theme is giving. And when we think about giving, we usually think about giving to others. However, what about giving back to yourself? And that is what this episode is all about. It is about giving back to yourself, being healthy, focusing on heart-healthy initiatives. And my guest today is Anna Schraff. Welcome to the show, Anna. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Lisa.
Good. We had such an interesting introduction that kind of evolved into something that was so serendipitous. I'm kind of taken aback by the whole thing.
Yes.
So you and I met through a friend.
Through my sister.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even realize she was your sister. So we met from her sister.
Yeah.
But the more we started talking, the more we had in common. So, for example, I have hereditary high cholesterol. So do you.
Same.
And I am so intrigued by your company, Mediterranean for Life. We're definitely going to get into all that. But I want to share with you that you were telling me about a lipoprotein, small a. And because of that, I went back to my doctor and said, hey, I think I should probably get tested for this. And sure enough, I tested positive for both biomarkers, small a and small b. I've had high cholesterol my whole life. I just never realized that I had these biomarkers.
Right.
And thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
educating me. And I'm so excited to have you here so we can educate other people.
Yes, we will talk all about it.
I feel like we need to advocate for our medical health so much more than maybe we ever have before. And I'm just so glad to have you on the show to talk about your experience, what you've learned, and help to educate our listeners.
Thank you. And that's really what it's all about. So thank you for having me. And I'm so excited.
Well, good. Me too. And I love the Mediterranean life because, of course, I'm Mediterranean.
Yes, right?
I love to eat.
It fits.
It fits perfectly. Take me back to the very beginning because you were diagnosed at a very early age.
Yeah.
So take us through the story.
Sure. So my LDL, which is the cholesterol that you want to keep lower, has always trended high. And a few years ago, I was 37. My kids are in kindergarten. I'm talking to my general practitioner. And I said, should I be worried about this? And she's like, well, you're kind of borderline. You could take a statin or you could just not take a statin. It's really up to you. And I did not feel equipped to make that decision for myself. I was young. I didn't want to take a prescription if I didn't have to. I mean, especially this is something usually people are taking for the rest of their life. And at the same time, I have a strong family history of heart disease. If I needed to take it, I wanted to take it, I didn't want to jeopardize my future health or even my life. And so I went to a women's preventative cardiologist, and she recommended having my lipoprotein little a checked. That also is commonly called LP little a, so either one of those. And she said, if that's high, you're going to need to be more aggressive because, and I'll tell you all about it, but that is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. But, if it's normal, then just modify your lifestyle and see if we can do it through that. And you don't have to worry about the statin. So that was really helpful. My LP little a turned out to be really high. So
was mine.
Yeah. So she, which it's like, okay, so I'm not adopted. Like I have this family history.
Right.
All right. So she prescribed a statin. But at the same time, I felt like a total inconvenience to her, which sounds like I'm not the only person who's had that experience. And I understand, she probably had so many patients who were, in dire situations needing immediate need, but there was no guidance on diet or exercise or prevention. So I sought out a new doctor, and I'm so glad that I did. And I'm not here to throw her under the bus, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure she's a wonderful physician. She just wasn't the right person for me. I sought out somebody with women's prevention in their title for a reason. And it just didn't feel like that. So all this to say, find a doctor who you trust and who shares values with you. If you value prevention, find a doctor who values prevention and who you're really comfortable participating in shared decision-making with, right? Not like, hey, you want to take a statin, take one or not. Like to me, that wasn't shared decision-making. And I find that has been really valuable. So that's where I started. And we're really lucky. We have the Cleveland Clinic here in Ohio. And when I started, looking for a cardiologist, that's where I landed. They have a women's preventative cardiology program that's multidisciplinary, which is really beautiful from a prevention standpoint. Right. So I see my cardiologist, but I also see an exercise physiologist and a dietitian. And there are other specialties under that umbrella. I just happen to not see all of them.
Right. But heart disease is one of the leading causes of death in women.
It is the leading cause of death for everyone.
But yet prevention is not something that we talk about. At least I haven't talked about it with all the different primary cares that I've had over the last 20 years or so. It was, here's your statin, go ahead and take that. And then, we'll have a blood test every quarter or so to make sure that that's not destroying your liver. Yeah. And I'm okay with statins. Yeah. That's not my issue. But I was just at the cardiologist, a brand new cardiologist last week. We never talked about diet. Didn't mention anything at all about exercise. And I know there's generic, you need to exercise more.
Right, but what does that mean?
Right. What are the things that I should be doing? At 58, I shouldn't be worried that I have a very high risk of stroke and a heart attack.
Right.
And so you naturally gravitated to the Mediterranean lifestyle. And I know you don't like to call it a diet, but a way of thinking through, right? What are the things that I can do in my life that will help lower my risks?
Yes, absolutely. Before I landed at the Cleveland Clinic and I knew I had this biomarker that I couldn't change. You can't change Lp(a). I was so overwhelmed. And I knew the Mediterranean diet was a thing. I knew, like you, exercise was a thing, but I didn't know how to execute all of those things together.
Right.
And not only that, but, you start looking up the Mediterranean diet and the most popular site that's not an academic institution, it's sort of Mediterranean diet-ish, but more so when you say I'm Mediterranean, right? Not necessarily the science-backed diet or pattern of eating that is really going to help you. So there's all, and I knew, I could tell just by looking, okay, that's not it. And figuring out how to really do the science-backed way. So when I went to the Cleveland Clinic, my doctor's number one recommendation for me was to follow the Mediterranean diet. And she had specific items to focus on within that, underneath that umbrella to help me lower my cholesterol, which I've learned since then is called the portfolio diet. It layers really beautifully into the Mediterranean diet. And she also recommended I keep my LDL under 70. And that was really the starting point. But even after I met with the dietitian, who's wonderful, she's quoted all the time in amazing publications, it still felt a little overwhelming. How do I do this? How do I do this at home with my family? And how do we convert regular recipes? So I just kept working on it. And
here you are. Mm-hmm. And so talk with me a little bit about what you do and how you help women and or men.
Yeah.
But wait, before we go there, I want to know, what have you been able to accomplish, right, with all the changes that you've made? What changes did you make, and what were the results?
Yeah, and I want to be really, really clear. Everybody is going to have their own personalized recommendations from their physician, right? My recommendations for me, even though we have so many similarities, are going to be different than recommendations for you. So just to be very clear, everybody's recommendations are going to be different. And what I have been able to do is I'm one of those people, I have to still take a statin because my cholesterol naturally trends high. And at first, my doctor thought that maybe by following these preventative recommendations, I could stop taking it.
Right.
But then, she had me do an echocardiogram, and LP little a can also impact your aortic valve. So I'm fine. She's like, you're going to live to, even if at 100, we see that like this is not going to be a problem. But I have to take the statin to make sure it's not a problem, right? I have a little bit of thickening in my aortic valve, which I'm really glad to know, though, right?
Well, right.
But going back to prevention and talking about that more and what should we all be doing, I really want to emphasize as part of the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean pattern of eating, it really falls under the 6 pillars of a healthy lifestyle.
Okay.
So those things like what should we be doing that our doctors aren't talking to us about necessarily, right? So nutrition, we're talking about that. Mediterranean diet, plant predominant pattern of eating, exercise. We know that's important. What do we do? 150 minutes of aerobic activity, hopefully a week, plus a couple strength training sessions.
Yep.
There's a lot more, and of course that's personalized for everybody too. Stress resilience is so important.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
It's easy to say, harder to do.
I know, and I can talk more about that because it is like one of mine. Avoiding risky substances, which unfortunately means like the good stuff like wine, but also anything else, like gummies are so popular right now, right? But not supporting your healthy lifestyle. But alcohol is a big one. Getting adequate and good sleep is so huge for our health.
Yeah.
And then social connections. I mean, I think we've all seen the highlights of like loneliness is
right.
Damaging to your health as smoking a pack a day or whatever. But that's really true. And these 6 pillars, they're not just pulled out of thin air. They're evidence based. They're each researched. Tons of scientific evidence behind them. And what I think is really interesting is regardless of whether or not you have high LP little a, as we talked about before, heart disease is the number 1 killer of everyone, right?
Right.
And the American Heart Association has their list of the essential 8, and it's the essential 8 things you should be doing to lead a healthy heart lifestyle. The American Cancer Society has their list.
Right.
It's good though, because not good. Cancer is the second leading cause of death.
Right.
But these 6 pillars mirror their lists. So it is consistent, even though it sounds like it's not consistent. It would be better if everybody just adopted the same 6 or what have you. But this list has serious power, and that's what I want people to know. Yeah. If you implement just one of these pillars, you've improved your life. You've improved your health outcomes.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to think, well, I can't do all 6. That is too much. Or
because it does seem overwhelming.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a diagnosis of
right.
either a biomarker or you've got high cholesterol.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. And so I want to make sure that people know improving one of these areas is going to bring you a better outcome. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have any, concerns that you're worried about, if you're just average Joe or Jane in the United States. But there was a really great Swedish study, although it's a little bit annoying because it was only men. That showed, yeah, I know, right? That showed that 79% of heart attacks could be avoided by following 3 of these. And that's huge. Like, that's really significant. And for women, we can reduce our risk of any cause of death by 23% just by following the Mediterranean diet. So that's just one.
Just diet alone.
And
what does that mean?
What does that mean? So, like, how are you following the Mediterranean diet?
Right. Because to me, the Mediterranean diet is all about wine.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about
all about wine, fish, and salad.
Yeah.
Which I love fish.
It's not
so much salad.
I might grab for that in a minute. But so the Mediterranean diet is okay. You alluded to this earlier. I hate the word diet. Like,
right.
Let's just scratch that out, kill it, get rid of it. Nobody wants to be on a diet. And I certainly don't want to tell people to be on a diet. Like, that sounds horrible. So we're really talking about a pattern of eating. So what you're doing, 80 to 90% of the time, this is your day to day. And what that means is you're having each day 3 servings at least of vegetables, hopefully more, 2 to 3 servings of fruit at least. You are eating 3 to 6 servings a day of whole grains. So we're not eating white bread, white pasta. When I see the picture of the giant glass of wine and the white pasta, I'm just like, that's not it, But it's also helpful because you see that and you're like, well, this isn't the right place for me. Where else can I look? We are eating lean plant proteins. So we're eating nuts, hopefully about an ounce a day or at least 3 ounces a week. I usually have a half a serving of walnuts with my breakfast. So I know if I do that every day, I've hit my 3 servings. We are having fatty fish, high in omega-3s. So that's salmon, mackerel. Yeah, I eat a lot of salmon. That's usually my go-to. So 2 to 3 times a week we're having salmon or fish, and a serving size is only 3 ounces, so it's not a ton.
Which is like a deck of cards, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep, that's right. We might have low fat or fat-free dairy each day. A serving is fine. Some research suggests less is better. I eat plain non-fat Greek yogurt a lot. It's a great source of protein for me.
Just a quick break to let you know that January on Inside Northwest Columbus is all about feeling better, living smarter, and actually taking control of your health this year. All month long, we're sitting down with experts and we're rethinking wellness and real ways, from sports medicine, pain relief, to menopause care, to the daily habits that genuinely move the needle. No trends, no gimmicks, just practical insights from the people shaping health and wellness right here in our community. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on conversations that could change how you start this year. So all of that in itself sounds overwhelming.
Oh, okay.
So I'm one of those people where, I don't eat breakfast, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Coffee is my breakfast, unfortunately.
Yeah, coffee is important.
Yeah, it's very important, at least to me.
And me too.
But thinking through, oh my gosh, did I have 3 servings of this? Did I have 2 servings of fruits and vegetables? How do you organize all of that to make sure, and maybe it just becomes like a habit as you eat more frequently?
Yeah.
But I'm one of those people where, unfortunately, I eat once a day.
Okay.
And
it is going to be hard to get all your nutritional needs in one meal a day. It will be.
And I get it. And look, I know that I need to make these changes.
Yeah.
But I can't be the only one that's struggling with that kind of a, and that's just one of the 6 pillars.
Right.
So how did you get on a routine? How did all of this come together so that you're knocking it out of the park when it comes to your diet?
Well, small habits over time and with consistency make big changes. So some people, want to dive in head first, do it all, and then they get burnt out and it's too much. So I don't recommend that. Each person has their own goals and I'm here to help them meet those goals, right? So for you, if you're telling me, hey, I eat once a day, how am I supposed to meet these nutritional requirements? And we're really focused on the nutritional pillar of health. We're not even worrying about the other stuff right now.
Yeah.
We're going to look at okay, what do you enjoy? And if your, breakfast is coffee, which I get it. This morning I woke up, I drank 3 cups of coffee. I went to the gym. I came out,
You got to the gym though. That's good.
Yeah. Well, because I did it first thing this morning. That's my habit, to make it happen.
Right.
So we're going to look at how do we integrate these things into your day and how do you plan for that? Because if you don't plan for it, it's just not going to happen.
I do think that's key.
So a lot of times the night before, I will make my breakfast for the next morning, and then I just throw it in the fridge, pop it in the microwave for 30 seconds. Obviously, I didn't do that today. I didn't eat it before I went to the gym, but I did have it after. And then, one thing I do every week, and, food variety is really important. Yeah. We cannot get everything we need by eating the same 3 meals every day. But one thing I do, because tofu and soy products are really important for me in helping me maintain a lower cholesterol, which is part of the portfolio diet integrated into the Mediterranean pattern of eating, is I bake a batch of tofu, just roast it the beginning of the week, usually over the weekend, and then a bunch of vegetables. So I buy this big old bag of mixed vegetables at Costco, super plain and boring, but it has lots of different things in lots of different colors, which is a really great way for us to get phytonutrients. So I think I told you this the first time we met. I thought eating the rainbow was a good thing because, like, I thought that was the advice people gave, because that means, you know, if you're eating a serving of something red and something green and something blue or purple, you're certainly eating plenty of servings. But the idea actually is, the science behind that is, so the color of a vegetable or a fruit is determined by chemicals, naturally occurring chemicals in it called phytonutrients. And those each have a different kind of helper, if you will, for your nutrition and for your well-being. So if you eat one of, like, something small of each of those colors every day, you're going to get all those micronutrients that you naturally need. So this is my shortcut to make sure
you're getting
I'm getting
all
it.
that.
So it's like broccoli, squash, carrots, red bell peppers, mushrooms. So it's like a really great rainbow. And you know, I have about 2 cups of it with my tofu every day. So I'm hitting like a big check mark there. And it's just like, and I put olive oil on it.
Yeah.
Which we didn't talk about in, you know, what is the Mediterranean diet, but olive oil is so crucial. And part of the Mediterranean diet is getting saturated fats out, right? So butter, you know, I didn't talk about, you know, I didn't say, yes, we're eating red meat, right? Because we're trying to eliminate saturated fats. That's why we're having low fat or non-fat dairy, right? You're going to get your saturated fats in your diet, like through nuts, through olive oil, through naturally occurring in plant foods. But olive oil, it's not just that it's lower in saturated fat. There's 2 grams in a tablespoon, whereas butter is pretty much gram for gram saturated fat. But it's so anti-inflammatory. It has so many health benefits for you. It's not just that, it's less worse. So Mediterranean diet, you're eating 2 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil a day.
That one I got down.
Okay.
I don't have an issue with that.
All right, good.
The dairy, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I have always had this thing about like non-fat milk. And
I was always that way too.
I grew up on vitamin D milk.
Yeah.
I grew up on like full fat yogurt and just no artificial anything.
Yeah.
And
I totally
it's really hard for me to drink blue milk, or it's really hard for me to drink like gray mayonnaise.
Right.
Eat gray mayonnaise.
Yes.
I like all the fat in there.
Yeah. Okay. So you're just going to have to pick.
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, and I'm serious when I say that. I'm not saying like, okay, you have to get rid of it all, throw it out.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. Like, you know, we say 80 to 90% of the time. So how much dairy are you eating in a day? Are you eating 3 cups of yogurt? Yeah, we're going to need to look at that, because that's going to keep your
everything
cholesterol
in
high.
Moderation. Makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Like, I buy mayonnaise. I don't worry about it because I don't eat that much of it, and it tastes good. You know, like, I don't care because it's such a small amount. Whereas, you know, making sure we're eating whole grains and things like that, if I'm following all of, like, most of this 80 to 90% of the time, that means that, like, what do I care about eating? Like, that really, you know, I can autopilot my tofu and veggies for lunch. That's no problem because I'm in a hurry and I don't care, and it just gets the job done.
Yeah.
And it does hit the spot for me. But, like, if somebody told me you can never eat pizza again,
right, I'd be like, I'm out.
This isn't for me. Like,
Right.
Sorry. And that's really, I think, the beauty of the Mediterranean diet. And I mean, frankly, that's why it's Mediterranean for Life is the name of my company, because, like, if we're in this for life, like, it has
it's
to
not a
work
2-week deal.
for us.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of, like, hating the word diet, right? It sounds so restrictive. But I think people find, once they're into it a little bit more, like, I think people feel really good. You know, you have energy, you're taking care of your body, but also it's not really restrictive once you sort it out. And it's that sorting it out part that's hard. So, I mean, for some of my clients, I rewrite some of their favorite recipes to help them adopt them in a way that still works. You know, it still tastes good, lots of flavor.
But lower
but
fat,
healthier.
lower saturated fat, and maybe more emphasis on the vegetables and the whole grains.
Yes, right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and like, you know, I mean, I have 3 kids. I make them cookies. I just use a lot less sugar. I use whole grain flour, you know, and olive oil instead of butter. And like, they're happy. It's fine, you know.
And they probably don't even notice.
Oh, I mean, they used to. They don't anymore.
They don't now.
They don't anymore. They've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there are these little swaps. And I would, you know, I wouldn't recommend somebody make all the swaps at once. I know a lot of people are like, ooh, tofu, soy products, hard pass. But, you know, if you start making tacos and you use half ground beef and half tofu, or even 3/4 ground beef and 1/4 tofu, and you just keep, you know, inching it along the other way toward the tofu, eventually you might be at 3/4 tofu, 1/4 ground beef, or, you know, like it doesn't have to be everything all at once is what I'm trying to say.
You mentioned this a couple times. You said that you incorporated a lot of soy into your diet because it was your way of being able to keep your LDL down.
Yeah, I can
because
talk more
below 70. Yeah. Help me with. I had no idea. I like soy products. It's just not something that I think about every day. But has that had a major impact in your ability to lower your LDL?
You know, I wonder if it has. I think so. It's hard to say the changes I have made. I mean, I know the changes I have made have absolutely lowered my LDL. Do I feel they're not the only changes, though, because I'm taking this low dose statin, right? So I would hate to say, like, yes, it's made all the difference. But what I can say is my husband, who, you know, when thinking about success stories, I always think of him because, and I have his permission to share this, I am the grocery shopper at our house.
Yeah.
So I'm putting all the things in the Kroger cart or like making the Costco list, what have you. And so everything in our house, I mean, right now we like have buckets of Halloween candy, but otherwise, you know, like open our pantry and it's all stuff that is Mediterranean diet friendly. And so that's what he eats. And that's what we have for dinner. But, you know, he does his own thing for breakfast and lunch, of course. But his LDL used to hang out in the mid-80s. It's always been good. It's always been better than mine, which I've found to be very annoying.
Yeah.
But his last physical, it was 48.
Wow.
And he has no changes other than being in a household where we only shop the Mediterranean diet. So, yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, that's annoying.
It's really annoying. Although he has it's not nearly as high as mine, but he has an elevated LP(a) also. So I'm really grateful that his LDL is so low. But yeah, I'm like, okay, this works. Excellent.
That's great. I noticed when I was younger, when my weight would be below a certain amount, right, my cholesterol would naturally go down.
Yeah.
And so I stopped taking a statin for 5 years or so because I'm like, oh, my weight's down, therefore I probably don't have a problem.
Sure. And that could be true. Like for some people, that is true.
But I was shocked because when I went back to the doctor this fall, you know, I'm not as heavy as I was years ago. And I was thinking, oh, well, my cholesterol must be down. It was not. Had no idea.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just, you know, our bodies change. And so we have to recognize that.
Yeah.
And I love that you've incorporated some of these other pillars as well, because it isn't all about food.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of these other pillars and where people can focus on helping.
Absolutely. But going back to your point about your cholesterol being higher now, and you're a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
So for people assigned female at birth, as we get older and our estrogen drops, our LDL goes up. So my mom has had to deal with this a lot too. Like hers just, it's like mine, it just stays up. But as she's 71 now. And as she has gotten older, it just keeps trending up. Even though she weighs less, she's eating healthier.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and that's, everybody is unique, right? You know, and you don't know what's going to impact you. But yeah, let's talk about the pillars. So we've talked a lot about Mediterranean diet.
Yep.
We're focusing on plants, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, fatty fish. And that doesn't mean you can't have other things in moderation for sure. I love that at the Cleveland Clinic, they put on, like homemade treats like 2 or 3 times a week. I'm like, yes, love that. So exercise. And this is one where before you start an exercise program, you do want to talk to your doctor
Of course.
if you don't exercise, right?
Yep.
And I want people to know the biggest, and I may have mentioned this earlier, the biggest benefit to your health that you can get from any exercise comes from not exercising to exercising. And that can just be walking. So that's the biggest gain you can get. So I can't get that gain from being a person who exercises regularly to, say, being a person who exercises more or
Right.
harder. This is the biggest gain. So the recommendation is 150 minutes of moderate exercise, which is based on your heart rate. So that's going to vary on your age and your aerobic fitness. But think of it like walking. Maybe you can have a conversation. You're a little windy. It's not just, you're not walking out to the mailbox. You're walking a little quicker.
Right.
And then, or 75 minutes of harder exercise. And that would be like running, things where you cannot carry a conversation.
Yep.
Plus 2 sessions of strength training a week.
Yeah.
We know that is super important, especially for women, osteoporosis, bone strength, but also those muscles. Your heart likes muscle. Your body likes muscle. It helps you stay leaner because it burns more calories, which is great. Love that. And it keeps your metabolism up. But, it also feels really good to be strong.
Right.
It feels good. I love that.
Yeah. One of the things that my doctor said to me was that to help with, so I have the precursor to osteoporosis.
Oh, sure.
And she had said that, strength training is the best thing that you can do. And the more that I'm hearing, and I know I need to do this, but the more that I'm hearing about it, it impacts so many other facets of your life as well. So yes, it'll impact, hopefully, right, my cholesterol levels,
Right.
but also the osteoporosis and plus you just feel good.
Right.
It's just so much easier to talk about it than it is to actually do it.
It is. And that's where those habits come into play.
Right.
So I think it's important with exercise or any of these pillars that we understand what the motivation is. So if you're like, well, my motivation is I don't want to get osteoporosis. Okay. But, is there anything that being strong can help you do in your life also?
Right.
Is it, your goal is to retire and travel a lot. You want to make sure you're still really mobile, right? Or in that you can toss your carry-on up in the bin on the airplane, right? I mean, is your goal you want to be able to play with your grandkids on the floor in 15 years? So really understanding what somebody's motivation is, and then how do we achieve that goal, right?
Yeah.
So if your goal is I want to put my carry-on and, not have any trouble traveling, then you need that strength training.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to, as you're doing your strength training and you're doing farmer's carries or what have you, you're going to realize like, oh, yes, I can do this.
And you bring up a great point, because just listing out all the benefits that you're going to get, not just from eating better, but also from exercising, maybe that can help to be a motivator, right?
Yes.
On those days, especially when you're like, I really don't feel like doing
Right.
this. And then you can look over, right, all the benefits you're going to get. Maybe that helps you
Yeah.
start those New Year resolutions that we're all
Right.
thinking through
about
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, a couple things that have been really helpful for me, and I know I'm not the only person, is doing things you enjoy. So I'm never going to recommend that a client eats all the spinach if they hate the spinach, right? Well, like, what other greens do you like? And we're going to sort that out. If somebody hates running, I'm not going to recommend they do that.
Yeah.
So for me, what works is I go with my sister to the gym. It's just down the street from here, actually, to do strength training. And there are a lot of really awesome women there that I get to see every morning. And then it becomes about like, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? How was trick or treat? Right. And I know too, if I don't show up, people are going to be like, hey, where were you?
Right.
So it's really a lovely community. And then for cardio, I run. Although, as I mentioned, I have this plantar fasciitis. It's really holding me back right now. But I only run about 3 miles because if it's more than 3 miles, unless it's like a one-off 5K, I dread it. Like, I don't want to go run 4 miles. That's just like, I'm bored, I'm done.
Yeah.
But 3 miles is fine. So I'm not going to push myself to do more than that. Like, that's enough. I'm good. So finding, what brings you joy. Like, I like to listen to my favorite podcasts when I run, and there's one that comes out every Tuesday.
Every week called Inside Northwest Columbus.
Yeah, and I'm like, long run day, I get to listen to this, So, or finding a buddy, just finding what really works for you. And there are so many good options out there. And, you haven't failed if you try one and you don't like it. It's just, maybe that's not for you, right? And that's okay.
Didn't get the magazine at home? No problem. You can read it for free by signing up for our digital issues. Just head to the link in the show notes. And hey, if you're just listening to this episode, did you know you can watch it too? Catch the full video on YouTube, link below. I love the community component.
Me too.
I'm a firm believer in that too, because it is so hard to get started with an exercise class, especially when you walk in and you don't know anybody. Going with a friend and then building those relationships. Right. Now you feel like you belong somewhere. That, I think, can go a long way to helping you stick to a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, social connections, one of the other pillars. Yeah. And I think this is particularly interesting because we do live in a very virtual world in some ways. And we're also living in a bit of a divided world.
Absolutely.
A polarized world in our country. And so I think, looking at ways that you want to be connected in your community. And I heard somebody talk about this strategy once, and I thought, well, that's really lame. And then I found myself the other day being like, I think I should do that. But they were talking about a spreadsheet of friends. And I thought, who needs to put all the friends on a spreadsheet? But it was just to make sure you're staying in touch with them. And that, we collect these people over our lifetimes, right? And, it's just like, have I seen this person this quarter? Or I want to make sure I see this person twice a year. Or, so really thinking about that. I know I was laughing because, I wouldn't normally ask somebody if they go to church or synagogue or what their, relationship is with spirituality, but those sorts of environments have really profound social connections.
Right.
And, whether it's that, a running club, fourth, my kids are in the 4th grade. And so we have the 2nd grade moms group, which started a couple of years ago when they were in 2nd grade. And it was just me saying hey, moms, do you guys want to come over for happy hour? And so now we have this long text thread and we get together. We did a weekend at Hocking Hills, but just figuring out how to
establish and maintain that connection.
Yeah. And being, just putting yourself out there.
Yep. I think it's so healthy. As someone who came from corporate, I spent 30 years in corporate, I was not connected to my community.
Right.
I was traveling all the time. I was very focused on just me.
Right.
And it wasn't until I left corporate and got more involved in my community and with the people that I was meeting. Mm-hmm. It's made a huge difference in my life.
Right.
It's one of the 6 pillars that I can actually do at this point.
It's having a great benefit to your health.
It absolutely is.
It is.
I wholeheartedly agree. Mm-hmm. Now, if I could just get some of these others down, I think I'd be in really good shape, Anna.
Yeah. How's your sleep?
My sleep.
Talk about that one?
Yeah, I do want to talk about that one because you said something very interesting earlier where, sleep and you mentioned gummies and other things that maybe are not as healthy. What I was finding is that I was not sleeping at all. I'd sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours. I'd be up at 1, go to sleep again at 5, and then wake up feeling terrible, right? Mm-hmm. I started taking gummies so that I could sleep through the night.
Is it working for you?
Oh my God, it's been a huge game changer.
Well, that sounds like a win. I mean, I would talk to your doctor, you can talk to your doctor
absolutely.
about the health benefits or not, but it sounds like it may be skewing in the right direction for you. I mean,
it lowered anxiety. Lowered just like me not being grouchy.
Well, and like, who wants to eat healthy when you're tired?
Well, you don't make the best decisions, or like your emotions are not always on par when you're that tired.
Worst.
Yeah, and I think as you go through menopause or perimenopause, really you experience all of that. So, to me, right, finally figuring out my sleep.
Yes.
And so maybe I have 2 of the 6 that I'm working on.
Yeah, well,
that I have down. It's the other ones that I need.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. So avoiding risky substances otherwise, that and stress resilience are my hardest. Like I'm not the poster child for those 2.
Stress resilience, I think, is tough on all of us because it comes in the form of so many different things, right?
Yes.
Whether it's kids or family or your job or your health or it's
all
like,
the things.
Yeah, we're just bombarded. Even just watching the news can be devastatingly stressful, right? Yeah. So figuring out ways, I think, to adapt, and I'm not good at lowering my stress levels. My husband is really good at it. He meditates every day. He's like, he does a great job.
That's wonderful.
Me, not so much.
Okay.
I'm one of those where I internalize everything and then it, it spirals. But I do think that exercise has an important, side effect, and that it does help you release that stress.
Oh, I mean, it's tremendous. Yeah. I'm bad news bears without my exercise and without sleep. It's just terrible for the stress. And yes, like, 3 kids, a husband with a demanding job, like the world is wild. There's just a lot going on. It's hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, stress resilience is hard. Exercise is the biggest thing that helps me. Eating healthy really helps me. Yeah. And I work with a therapist. So, I see her every couple of weeks, and we're working on some stress reduction strategies, which I hope are, having an impact. I'm sure my family would tell me, honestly, how that's going. But things that, I'm like, why do I not know how to do this? Like, nobody ever taught me this growing up,
Absolutely.
Which I'm hoping my children maybe have a little bit more out the gate than we did.
It's tough. Those 6 pillars, think about it. If we could all get those under our belt, think about how much happier and how much healthier that we would be.
Right.
But it is, it's not easy.
It's not easy. And you don't have to be perfect.
Life.
You don't have to be perfect, right? Yeah. But those small habits are really going to help. Which, of course, I don't know about you, but when I'm really stressed, like that 1 or 2 glasses of wine sounds really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the junk food sounds really great.
Yeah.
Like
it's the aftermath that is never great.
It's a terrible cycle.
It is.
Yeah. And of course, I'm also a person with anxiety. So then I'm like even more anxious, and it's just a bad cycle. So I'm working on that too.
Yeah.
But I'm a millennial. I'm 41. Alcohol has always been a really important part of all the things in my life.
Yeah.
So from college, like going to the bars and being social with people, to like a young professional, and that's how I made friends, to all the things. And I remember there was a time in my life where it was like, red wine is really healthy. And I'm like, well, I should try to, I was in my early 20s. I'm like, okay, well, I'll
drink
work on
more of that.
Yeah. And now, I feel like it's really followed us into mommy culture. And also it's not healthy. Like, it is not healthy at all. Yeah. And I think we're still trying to get the message out on that.
I agree. And I do think that age has an impact on your ability to metabolize that alcohol and actually feel good. Like during COVID, and that was not even all that long ago.
Right.
I drank a ton.
Oh, everybody did. It was awful.
What do they say? You were either a chunk, a monk, or a drunk.
Yeah.
Something like that. I drank a ton during the pandemic. Same. But then 5 years went by, and I can't drink like that anymore. I don't even drink alcohol now because I don't like how it makes me feel.
Good for you. That's very wise.
Hey, there is a plus to getting older, right?
Check that pillar.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is the one area where I feel like I see a significant, change in how I can handle the alcohol. And I just don't feel good after, whether it's a glass or 3 glasses. It's just not
good for you.
Yeah, it's just not one of those things. But it's interesting. I'm looking at what happens when you age and the impact that that has on those 6 pillars.
Oh, right.
And I think that we need to be cognizant of
like how our bodies evolve through time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you coach your patients. Tell me a little bit. I mean, I know that it's around the 6 pillars and that you look at all 6 of those and help people down that path.
Right. And I primarily am, at this stage of the game, I'm primarily doing education, right?
Yeah.
And then I look forward to doing more coaching. I'm actually starting a training program tomorrow it's called Well Coaches, which they've really written the manual on becoming a board certified health and wellness coach. So I'm really excited about that.
Good for you.
Yeah. But anytime, like how I coach people, it just depends on the person or how I work with somebody. Everybody is different. Some people are saying, I eat 1 meal a day. I don't know what to do. And somebody else is saying like, yeah, I work for 12 hours straight and I just run around all day like a crazy person. Like, how am I supposed to meet my nutritional goals? Whereas, then some people say, well, like, I live by myself and I don't have a lot of money to spend on food. And I don't really want to cook for just me. Like, this isn't fun. And then you have people like me who are like, well, I have, a husband who will eat anything, thank goodness. And then 3 children who, like, it's kind of hit and miss, but they get what they get. But it does, everybody is in a different situation. And really, so my goal is always to meet everybody where they are. As far as goals and as far as nutritional needs, like what you need is going to be different than what I need. And also if somebody has, a recommendation or prescription from their doctor. So for everybody in this anybody out there, the Mediterranean diet is a good thing, unless you've been told otherwise, which I would be surprised. It is the most well-researched, most evidence-supported pattern of eating. And then sometimes, we have specific requirements, subsets of people, like I'm integrating the portfolio diet to help keep my cholesterol lower, and which is, incorporating flax and soy and plant sterols. There's also the DASH diet. So it's the dietary approach to stopping hypertension. So if somebody has high blood pressure, if we follow the Mediterranean diet, but incorporate more low-fat dairy, incorporate more poultry, that and some other things, we can really see a reduction in hypertension. So kind of starting at this baseline and then modifying if somebody needs a modification. So if somebody has celiac disease, it's like, well, how do I get all these whole grains in and avoid gluten?
Right.
So it's always about knowing what's your goal, what's your motivation, what makes you feel really good and is exciting, and then what do you need specifically, and what is enjoyable and what is sustainable for you, not for me and not for you, but, for this person.
And I could see how everybody would be different.
Absolutely.
But the one common denominator is that you can provide that support to somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
Where like if you go to your doctor every 6 months and they're like, well, how'd you do on this? Well, 6 months has gone by and you're by yourself.
They don't have
right?
time. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a much more coaching type of relationship.
It is.
Where, like maybe I don't need help on the alcohol side, but I need help on the eating side.
Right. Yeah.
Or the community side or what have you.
Yeah.
Tell me about your health today. Like obviously you do this because you've seen great results and benefits.
Well, I mean, and to some degree, you don't see it all, right? Like I know the evidence, like real science-backed research is telling me if I do this now, I'm going to be better off when I'm, 60 and 70. And I love what my cardiologist, I was having a real anxious moment one day when I was in to see her. And she was like, you can only do what you can do. And then like God takes over or something. And
oh, wait, forgot about that.
And I'm like, oh, like that's what you want to hear your doctor say. But she's right. Like you can only do so much. So if I do all the things, then I think it just feels like a really good investment. And like there's a component of stress that goes away knowing like I'm doing the right things for myself. But I'm also not perfect. Yeah. And so, I ebb and flow like lately there have been so many parties with fall and Halloween, and like, the drinks have been flowing, and I've been stressed. My husband was traveling. Like, it's just been wild.
Yeah. You can never get everything on all cylinders,
no,
right?
no. Yeah.
But I think focusing on those 6.
Right.
So that, maybe you're good in one area for a couple months and
Right.
maybe not so great in another.
Right.
But
or maybe I'm like building up my habits,
Yeah.
right? Like one habit, I mentioned, drinks being a problem, or not a problem, but like hard to moderate
Yeah.
sometimes. I've really gotten into mocktails, and it's like, just have something fun, and
Right.
so like, that's a new habit for me. Like my husband and I sit down to watch a show, and I like make us mocktails, and it's kind of fun. So just trying to get those habits going so that over time you're doing a lot to help
Yeah.
yourself. And that is what I want everybody to know. Like, you have tremendous power over your health. Not on every tiny thing, but generally
Right.
speaking, you have a tremendous amount of power. And it doesn't have to be expensive. You can walk, you can run, you can, I always say beans and tofu are cheap, right? Like, it's
Right.
great. Frozen vegetables are much less expensive. So I just really want it to be accessible, and for people to understand that even if they can't nail all 6 pillars, that's okay, but working toward your goals, keeping them in mind over time, you're going to be so much better off.
You've
You're gonna feel
inspired
good.
me so much.
Oh, good.
I mean,
That's lovely to hear.
when you get a diagnosis like that, it is overwhelming.
Right.
And you do think that, okay, starting Monday, I have to like get all this under control.
yeah.
It's just not possible.
Oh my gosh. When I first found out about this, before I went to the Cleveland Clinic, like, I was frozen by fear. I was barely eating because I was afraid. I didn't know what to eat.
Right.
I was exercising nonstop. I dropped a ton of weight, which felt really good, but my mental health was just a hot mess. Yeah. So
Where can people get more information about you and your program? I do have some of it in the show notes, but I want people to hear
Excellent.
directly from you.
yes. So I invite you, please visit mediterraneanforlife.com, and you can access all of my recipes there. I also have a Substack, which provides a lot of educational information and in digestible terms that you will be able to understand without a PhD, because we want this to be accessible. And the Substack is also called Mediterranean for Life. There is a link on my blog, or you can get there straight from the Substack app. And you can always reach out to me. My contact information is always there, but it is just Anna at mediterraneanforlife.com.
Wonderful. Anna, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming.
thank you. I'm so
It's been
grateful.
so great to get to know you, and just to kind of share like some of the things that we have in common has just been fantastic. So thank you for coming and helping to educate our listeners.
Thank you for having me.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's really a treat.
Awesome. That's going to conclude this episode of Inside Northwest Columbus. Please check the show notes for more information about Anna and her website. And we will look forward to seeing you here next week on Inside Northwest Columbus.
Boxland Media. Think big.